All right, so today's plan of action is to go over the ultimate pipeline, which I just noticed that I misspelled here. Uh, but we're gonna go over the configuration for this Terraform to set up a CICD pipeline using Jenkins. And I'm gonna go ahead and start it up because it takes a little while for it to actually get set up. And while we're waiting for it to get set up, I can explain everything that's going on in it.
Well, you already created your cloud environment
Yes, as in you're saying the Terraform cloud.
and also Amazon that.
Oh, yes. So this is, and I included in the prerequisites, it kind of requires you to know some Terraform and some AWS. Yes, so we already connected to our AWS CLI, and we're connected to our Terraform cloud. But yeah, well, that's set up. The actual run is pretty quick, but the thing that takes a while is gonna be our VM. We have some user data going into it, which is pretty much just a bash script that is going to set up the um, different components of the pipeline. And for our environment, we can look at it in here. Look at it in here, private cloud. And this is a little bit dirty right now because of the fact that I was adding load balancer to it. I was gonna create a auto scale group for the application, add a load balancer in front of it, and connect it to a hosted zone. We'll be doing that later on, but for the time being, we're just creating our VPC. Our subnet is this is gonna run in subnet A, and our internet gateway, and connecting it with our public routes. So we have our security group block and some variables, and the main one is going to be the Linux VM. So if we come back here, once the apply is complete, you can go ahead and just follow the setup file here on how to set it up. Hey Sim, how's it going? So we come back over here to our instances. Pretty much what this does is it'll go through all the setup, and once it's set up, you can come to your this instance and grab your IP addresses and things that are going to be needed for the actual setup.
It does. So this
Yeah.
piece, grabbing the IPs is still a manual process, right? So eventually down the road, it could be what, automated as well?
Oh yeah, we can definitely set up an output command where it will output that IP address here once the instance is complete. And yeah, we could take care of that before we add all the fancy load balances and stuff. But yeah, I have it stated in here what port number all the different applications are running on. Jenkins in particular is going to be running on 8080. So it's going to be your IP address, port number 8080. This is all going to be done in HTTP. We're going to connect to it. That should be up and running. And this right here is where your initial admin password is going to be set up. So for that, we will have to connect to the machine. And you'll have to set up your keys. Keep that in mind. And you'll have to have them on your local machine to access this. I already have them set up. So if we jump over to our credential file, go ahead and connect. At some point today, you'll let us connect. Oh, there it goes. And we're gonna do a sudo cat. We're getting some connection errors. It's fun. And you'll just grab this password here and throw it into your console. How you guys doing? And
Question, is this temporary? Because now this is being recorded and you have the admin password there, the key. Is this something you reuse or is something that you go throw away after this?
no, this is obviously if this is in production, you don't want to share this, but in this case, this is a Terraform setup. I'm gonna destroy it right after this video, and we're just gonna keep recreating it.
Are
It's
you
not
going to
gonna
use
say anything.
KMS later on?
I don't know. I will not be. What do you mean when you say KMS?
I'm trying to find a way to encrypt it so that it won't. All right, never mind.
Well, Evelyn, in the case of this password here, it's a one-time use that an admin will use to set up Jenkins. You wouldn't want to share this at any point, so I don't think you would need to encrypt it Because once, and I'll show you in a second here, once you have this, you're gonna create your own password, like right here. So you're gonna create your own username, your first admin account, and the password. And this will not be necessary
Oh,
at
okay.
that point. Save and finish. Start using Jenkins. And the first thing we're gonna do, and this is all part of the setup, our README here, is we're gonna add our plugins. Jenkins, plugins. They'll be under available plugins. The main ones we're gonna need is gonna be our pipeline, Docker pipeline, and SonarQube. Install those guys. Once they're installed, it shouldn't take too long. Go ahead and restart your server. It's a really light program. It's running inside a container. It doesn't take long to restart, things like that. And yep, there we go. And you're gonna use your login here that you just created. And we'll come back to this while we're waiting. Go ahead and verify that our Maven is set up. It's gonna be running on port 8010. Good on that. And that our SonarQube is set up. For SonarQube, we're also gonna need it for our credentials later on. So we're gonna go ahead. The initial password for SonarQube, which I believe I'll have to add to our repo here. The initial password is gonna be admin. It's gonna be admin login, admin password. Once you're in, you can set it to what password that you want, if you know how to type. Any questions so far?
So far, so good. Hey, question I have is also like
Yeah.
for this work, is there like a diagram you're gonna have to show the actual outcome of from source to destination, that kind of stuff?
I could definitely set up a diagram, like a network diagram that shows the different components and things like that. Is that what you
Oh,
mean?
yeah.
We
Yeah.
can definitely set something up. Interesting. There we go. Yeah, I just didn't know how to type. It's okay.
No worries.
All right. Next thing on the list is to add our credentials. These are the 3 different credentials here. Your Jenkins pipeline is gonna use these to authenticate with the different programs that it uses. The first one's gonna be your GitHub developer token, and I'll kind of just do that off the screen. This is where we're gonna put in the token. It's gonna be under manage Jenkins as well, credentials for the system. And this is going to be global credentials in this case. You can make it more granular where they're set up per pipeline, but in this case, we're trying to keep it user friendly. We're just going to do global credentials. And I guess I can show you, gonna grab the credentials from going to your, under your repository settings. Yeah, so for the YouTube people, we had a network issue. It is now resolved. Gonna jump right back into it. So I believe last thing that I was recording is we're adding credentials. We're gonna start with the GitHub credentials. For that, you're gonna need to get a developer token. You're gonna go down here to developer settings, personal access tokens, and create a classic token. And once you create that, I'll show you. I'm gonna create it off screen here. Generate token. I'm gonna add credential. And this is gonna be secret text. You're gonna drop it in there. Make sure you when you create that token, there's the settings for it are very granular. Make sure you can read and write to your repo. Most important ones. So I have my token. Drop it here in the secret tab. The ID is gonna be. It has to be exactly like this because this is how Jenkins is gonna pull it. It's gonna need this key. Make sure it's exactly the same. Create. Next one, you're gonna add your username and password for your Docker repo. In my case, it's gonna be, dang, I forgot my own repo. DockerHub. I need this. Put in your password. And ID for this one is gonna be Docker cred. And the last guy is gonna be SonarQube, which this one is gonna be secret text as well. And for SonarQube, you have to have your SonarQube already up. You'll go over to your account, security, and generate a new token. I'll just name it Jenkins in this case. That's what we're using it for. And keep in mind, this whole instance is gonna get destroyed. This token is not gonna be valid after this video, but you can go ahead and try to use it. Great. All right, so we have all our credentials in, and we're gonna create our pipeline next. Jenkins, new item. pipeline, ultimate, CICD. Oh, look, any questions on the credentials?
You straightforward to me.
Yeah.
Th-
All right. Yeah, go ahead.
You good?
All right. Building the pipeline. You can either have your own script, which you can paste it in here. In our case, we're gonna use our script from our GitHub, and I want to give credit here to I am Veramala. This is his project as far as the actual Jenkins pipeline. I just have edited to my environment. Pipeline, we're gonna use the from repo, GitHub, and you're gonna want to use your URL. Come back over to GitHub, and we're gonna need the URL right here. No credentials. In my case, I am using the main branch. Make sure you use the same branch that you're working in. This is gonna be the path to the actual Jenkins file. In our case, we have it inside this directory under Spring Boot app, and here's our Jenkins file. We want to keep the part with the Jenkins file in it as well. All right. That all looks good. Leave. And I do want to go over the issues that we ran into last week where it kept failing. It was an interesting find. It's something I'm actually gonna submit to the original pipeline creator to see if he can put it into his repo. If we go over to, gonna be in the Jenkins file. So the issue we're running into last time is we kept building our pipeline, but it would only work the first time around. The second time you would run it, it would always fail. The reasoning for that was that whenever we would run the first time, it will build as normal. And let's actually go to his original because this is edited. Let's go to his repo. And if we see here, this is the last step of the build where it takes the build number, which it's grabbing from Jenkins. It's going to be our build number. And it is replacing this tag right here with the build number. The issue comes up that once you replace the tag, you're going to have a build number here, and it's not going to be able to find this tag inside that file. The file is mentioned here. This guy right here. Inside our deployment YAML. So the solution for that was to make it that it just finds the last build number and replaces it. So that's what I ended up doing is build number -1. It finds the previous build number, replace it with the new one instead of replacing the tag. Does that make sense?
Yeah, pretty cool. I love that command. That said command, I used the mess out of it.
It gave me a runaround for a week. But yeah, at this point, let me just confirm that.
Do you remember what was the error message so that in the future have a better way of troubleshooting it?
So it wasn't necessarily even an error message. It was because this command would fail, it wouldn't update. There was no changes made to the directory. Therefore, when it goes to do a git push and a git add, there's nothing to add or push.
Right.
That's why it was failing on our end because there was no changes made.
You think maybe an opportunity to, yeah, I guess it works, right? So maybe nothing to.
Because it didn't exist.
Yeah, like to your point, Evan, I'm thinking like maybe to add the functionality to the script to, if it doesn't exist, continue, right? Like ignore that.
Or create. If it doesn't exist, then create.
I guess it would still be an issue where because it's still gonna be a new build. It's a new build. It's just that this command is failing. It's just not updating the repository. Everything else before this, it changed the build. It's just according to that the deployment file, there's no changes.
Right. Because that command goal is to replace what's on the left to the one to the right. So yeah.
This is just a documentation thing. Everything else has already happened.
Yep.
Okay, what did I want to check? I wanted to check under my repo pipeline, just confirm That is the last step. Yep, so we should be able to, at this point, run this and have success. No, we will not, because I didn't update the SonarQube. I guess this gives us a chance to do some troubleshooting here. But yeah, we will have to update our repo with the new IP address because of the fact that this is a Terraform code. We're getting a new IP address every time, which you can't pay to have the same IP address. We're not doing that in this case, as this is just a lab. We will have to manually enter our new IP address.
Oh, I see. That's the part you mentioned earlier, right?
Yep.
Get the IPs, yeah.
Jenkins file, SonarQube IP. This one right here. And we're gonna put it in here for the Sonar URL. Let's take a look at that error as well. Also getting an error connecting to GitHub.
Is there a way to have an error say something more explicit information?
That's the wish, right?
Yeah.
No, you should, right? So that's a very good question. I love that question. It depends, you always have this thing called debug, right? With logs, you always have the high severity. So you can do debug. Debug spits everything, but it comes down to the person who wrote the script or the code to make sure that, for an error, if the error occurs, that they have more information. I mean, it's tough, but yeah, you can use the debugging if it exists and try to see what it's saying. For the most part, logs are tough, but you get used to them after a while.
We're missing the .git at the end by the looks of it. That's the one git. That's the same. All right. So let's give it one more shot. Looking
Something
a
is
little
happening.
better.
Something is happening. Oh,
The fail.
another one. Next error. Same thing. It's not able to find the. Is it not able to find that path, or is it looking for something very specific here?
Unable to find our
That-
Jenkins file. Go back to our build. It's a configuration error. Back to our pipeline. Not supposed to have that git at the end. So I'm wondering if we have a misspelling going on here. Looks good.
So the error, when you have everything set up, is it one file after other, or is it one giant file so you can't actually pinpoint what failed?
What do you mean? Can you elaborate a bit?
No, never mind.
No. I may have
Like
just.
if you're breaking up your into smaller segments so that this runs, then you're like, okay, fine, there's no error. Second part runs, no error. That way you can identify where the glitch is.
I mean, yeah, that's perfect. That's exactly what we're trying to do here. I'm trying to see if the error is in my original directory or the path to the Jenkins file here. Could be either or. Which case I have adjusted it to pipeline and do a rebuild. See what we get. Can I not see this Jenkins file? That's our issue right here. Is the lowercase in file. We come back to our build. As you can see, just a misspelling. I'll have to fix that inside my repo. Come back to our pipeline, reconfigure, and capital F. Save. Another run. And if everything else is configured correctly, should be no more errors. Fingers crossed. Gonna be our lucky day. I guess I can explain what each step here does. There we go. Did complete. Go back over to here. And we'll use his version to explain it. And there it is. Okay, so we're building pretty much the CI part of the CI/CD pipeline. And what it does is Jenkins, we have built our Maven app and SonarQube, and it just runs the app through Maven, then through SonarQube, and you can also add any test that you wanted to do. Creates a new image, pushes it to your DockerHub, and then updates your repo with the new Docker image. You can see our runs for our SonarQube in here, past everything, which of course this is a demo, therefore like this is not a very complicated application. But yeah, pushes the image to your repo here. Fresh. Last image pushed 2 minutes ago. Here it is, build number 4. And then updates your repo I'll have to go to mine on this one. Bring boot app manifest, deployment, and it'll update this to number 4 to show the new build image. That's it. The next step of this, and I'll run this again to show that I did resolve that issue that is gonna run every time. The next step of this is gonna be to build the CD part of it, which is gonna be it's gonna use Argo CD to pretty much pull that image that we just created and put it into a Kubernetes cluster, which that shouldn't be too difficult. And then yeah. Any questions?
My question would be, this is great, by the way, good stuff. Question is, like, you know, for some of us who may not be familiar with Jenkins, some of the concept, why would you need it? And, you know, what is it really used for? Like, you know, just.
It's used to pretty much automate deployments. In the case of if you have a large organization and if instead of having every developer build their own environment, this automates that where they just need to write the code and then we can deploy it for them. And it does all the testing for them. And you also built in code review into this as well. That's the gist. Is code control for the most part.
Very nice. Appreciate it.
As you can see, another successful run.
Yeah.
Fantastic. And we got to see a little bit of troubleshooting as well. In the case of Terraform, because we're using Terraform to build this, I love Terraform in the fact that for one thing, it's a way for you to document your environment. You're able to go into your repo, to the pipeline, and you can see everything that's being built. This is not the one we're actually working in. I'll have to update this. This is the code that we're actually running. The next step of this build is to create an autoscale group and put a load balancer in front of it and then linking it to a hosted zone. That is not yet working, but the point I'm trying to show here is you're able to document everything that is in your environment. You're able to visually see everything that's being built as long as you can read the Terraform code, all the different resources, and you can also set up variables that you are then able to change in the case that you want to adjust how the environment is built. If you need a larger instance, for example, if you have different key names that you want to switch out, you're using a new AMI, you can swap it out pretty simply, desired min-max size. It just simplifies things instead of going through to the console and having somebody change it. In this case, if you're also running to Terraform Cloud, you can set up permissions and code reviews so you can't push things out without getting it approved. It leads to a much safer, much more secure environment. So let's take a look at this. Another successful run. So yeah, we've solved that issue. Once you've completed working with your Terraform code, you can go over to this for us beginners that you're playing around with this stuff. You don't have to incur these large fees to have your lab. If you go back over to your pipeline, you can spin things up, play around with it, construct it how you want to adjust it. Then once you're done, you can just destroy it. Probably won't want to run an auto approve in your live environment, but we're just showcasing today, so we can go ahead and that. Usually it'll give you a prompt and you can see exactly what it's destroying, so then you can say yes or nay. That's it. All I got for you.
Good job, Diz.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, green is nice.
It sure is. Instead of what we were
That's
seeing
always
last
the
week.
sign.
Oh man.